All right, hello and welcome everybody. Doug here with thelincolnlist.com. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Whiteboard Lessons. I've got a good topic, and that is 3 common types of trader behaviors. We're going to talk a little bit about the good of those behaviors, the bad of those behaviors, and then some of the steps that you can take to fix the bad. That way, ultimately, you can make more money as a trader. Now, before I start, remember, if you like the educational content here, you want to keep up to date with the Lincoln, show your love for the Lincoln by subscribing right here in the upper corner to this channel. Now, this is just my personal experience when I say common behaviors. Obviously, if you've watched any of these past videos, you realize I'm not a doctor or a psychologist, so I'm basically just going off of what I've learned. It's not like a study from Johns Hopkins University or the Mayo Clinic. It's just my personal experience with working with traders over the last 16 years and the common behaviors I see them display and the good and bad of each one of those behaviors. And of course, these are the most common kind, and see if you fit in any one of those, and hopefully we can help correct any kind of issues you may have or help you make a little bit more money. Let's get right into it. The first one I want to discuss is gambling. Now, a lot of people will say that trading itself is gambling, and I disagree. If I can remember, I'll put the link underneath of this video right here where I did a rant a while back about why trading is not gambling. But just as a brief understanding of why I don't consider it gambling is because when you're trading based on a setup that has been back tested, that has data and statistics behind it. Sure, it's not perfect, but you're making an educated decision. You're not walking into a casino and just throwing quarters haphazardly into a slot machine, hoping and crossing your fingers for a victory. That's not how trading works. But people come into trading, they have a natural gambler's personality. And what this would be like is this need to feed off of adrenaline and action. So when the market opens, a person with a gambling personality will feel that they have to make a trade. They need to be in a trade, they have to have action, and they need the drama to keep themselves or make themselves feel alive. Now, the good part of having a behavior like this is usually the gambler understands risk to reward. They understand that they have to sacrifice a certain amount of money or a certain amount of effort to gain a reward. And they're aware of that kind of a trade-off. A gambler also is aware of losses, since anybody who comes from a gambling background, maybe from a casino or a gamer's perspective, fantasy sports or something, is used to experiencing loss. So the good qualities about a gambler's personality is they understand risk and they also understand loss, which some traders do not. The downfall of a gambler is the need for that action, as that can become a big downfall because not every day is a good day to make a trade. This is one of the things that I think traders struggle with when it comes to goals and other things, is you feel that if the market is open, there has to be an opportunity. There has to be a trade. Now, usually the market will present opportunities to you every day, but sometimes you may see one, maybe 2. Other days, you may see a dozen or more. You're not in control of that day. I think we kind of discussed that before as well. You kind of are a victim to the market and whatever it wants to do. Some days it's going to be slow, some days are going to be fast. But a gambler's biggest problem will be the need for a consistent basis of action, which will lead them to bad habits such as revenge trading, over trading, and the need to make something happen. So those would be the downfalls. Now, a simple way to correct something like this, if this is where you fall in as a trader, would be setting, I'm going to say, let's just scratch this out and just say maxes. You're going to have to set maxes, or a good step to take is setting maxes, and that's a max daily profit, a max daily loss, a max amount of trades per day. Setting yourself with benchmark limits based off of your past trading. So for example, using my statistics, I usually trade as a day trader between 4 and 6 positions a day. I notice that when I go above 6, if I start reaching towards 10 to 12, I'm over trading. That means I'm not having that much success in the market. I'm taking little small wins. I'm working harder than I should be, and I shouldn't be trading those extra time. That would be over trading. So based on that, 4, 6 would be a max. So let's say, being generous, a 7 trade max. Once you reach 7 trades, you just stop for the day no matter where you're at. Once you reach a certain limit, which you should have that anyway, certain loss limit, certain gain limit, you should have those just naturally as a trader. But you would want to be more diligent about that if you had a gambler's personality, because what you want to do is make sure that you're not overdoing it when the opportunities aren't there. The second one I'm going to be a little bit more familiar with is that's anxiety. Now, when I say anxiety, it's terrible, terrible penmanship. When I say anxiety, I don't mean like you feel when you're on a skyscraper leaning over like, oh, I'm scared, I'm freaked out, I'm too afraid to make a trade. Some people are scared to make a trade. But the anxiety I'm talking about is just naturally being an anxious individual, where you just can't you just can't sit still. This is something that I kind of suffer from, and one of the ways it is when the market's open, I feel like I have to trade, but not from a gambler's point, but I feel like I shouldn't be sitting here. I should be doing something. Kind of like on the weekends when I sit around, I can't sit around the house. I need to work on something or always be busy. Some of you may have that kind of a personality. Now, the good part of having that personality is you're a lot more patient than a gambler. You will normally wait for a setup. Even though you're anxious to get into a trade, you're usually a little bit more particular about the trades that you get into, although sitting idly can hinder you. That moves me to the bad part of having anxiety is the patience level. Normally, you're unable to allow things to work for you. So if you have heavily anxiety, when you get into a trade or you expect things to work faster than normal. This is something, as I said, I struggled with a lot when I started out. I've made tremendous strides. But some of the problems that I would suffer with was cutting my wins too early. And I got into a trade and I expected the trades to work out immediately. And if they didn't work out, I started to second guess myself. And you had like that little trader devil with the pitchfork going, get rid of that position, get rid of that position, sell it, buy it, get out, right? So the longer a position you were in it, you started to get the second doubts creeping up because you're anxious. You don't want to be in the trade forever, or you find it very difficult to be comfortable in a trade. Again, this is not about being scared to be in a trade. It's just some people have a nervous energy and it's hard to settle down and to be calm when it comes to trading, because oftentimes people with anxiety, they fear the worst. You get into a trade, I just naturally think everyone's going to be a loser. This is never going to work. This is a terrible idea. And that's just how we live our lives. The steps that you can take for this, it's a tough thing, but you've got to build a certain level of patience. And for me, this was tough, was trying to be patient and doing it through being realistic. I used to think that when I got into a trade, I would know the results 30 seconds later. And that's really difficult when you think about it for a trader to make a trade and their whole career is just going to be based on the next 30 seconds. I mean, you got to give it more time to work than that. You also have to allow yourself more time to be in trades when they start working for you. One thing that I used to use was one of those old-fashioned kitchen timers, the kind that you turn and they would tick. Some of you millennials wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But I would get into a trade, set a stopwatch or your clock. I would set it for 10 minutes and I'd say, no matter what happens to this stock, up, down, I'm good, bad, green, red, I will not touch this stock for at least 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You set the standard yourself. But I would force myself to stay in it. That meant I had to get up and walk away, go outside, take a drive down the street, whatever it took, that's what I had to do. So that's what you will have to do if you have anxiety. The last I want to talk about is perfection. Okay? I'm just babbling with my penmanship here, okay? Now I find this is somebody who feels that they have to have an answer for everything, and everything has to be perfect for them to make a trade, or a scenario has to be perfect for them to make a trade. This could be like a paralysis through analysis, stalling, waiting for the right, haggling over maybe a nickel in price on your trade, or the overall need to make sense out of the market. Now, I have discussed before in the past, the market makes absolutely no sense ever. If you try to make sense of it and think it's all based on logic, you're in for a rude awakening. There wouldn't be stocks that go from $3 to $100 in a week if everybody was under the influence of logic. Now, I'm not singling anyone out in particular, but usually the people that come from this are a highly educated group of people. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, physicists, techies, people that are used to finding solutions to every problem in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of your trading is based off of gut feeling and not being always at the perfect price, the perfect exit, the perfect stop loss, waiting for the market to do exactly what you want. Because what happens is as time goes on, the biases build up. Now, the good thing about this is a person who's a perfectionist really goes the extra mile to study their strategies and perfect that strategy to make it the very best possible strategy that they can make it. They also study a lot because that's usually the background they came from. So they put in the work, they put in the time, and they really, really take it seriously. And they don't usually overtrade. You know, they don't usually take tier 2 or 3 setups in place of top tier setups. They're very patient people and they wait. That's the good. The bad, as I said, is the market itself is anything but perfect. And there's just some things that happen in the market that are unexplainable. And a very good example would be both situations we had this year. One would be Brexit. Remember when everybody, if you were following the market then, everybody said Brexit would be horrible. It's the worst thing that can happen to the UK. It will tank our markets. We get a small tank that lasts for 1 to 2 days. You know, a week later, we're at all-time highs, as if it never happened. So obviously that rational thinking wasn't correct. Same way with the recent election. It was supposed to be if a Republican got elected, this market would be bearish for years. Here we sit today, just a few ticks away from all-time highs as I'm doing this. So the market does not make sense. And the need to try to make sense is a difficult thing to do. You got to kind of keep yourself away from that. Now, one of the other things about it is sometimes you start out as a gambler and you end up with severe anxiety. This was something that I did. You know, sometimes you start out at one of these in your early career and you end up being anxious. And for example, one of the things I did when I started out, I was kind of gambler. I took a lot of risks. I was very, very aggressive. And then I got clipped a few times. And then I got nervous and upset and, you know, all those emotions. And then I got, you know, anxiety. I don't have to worry about this. You can tell by my penmanship, my dress code, my hair, my overall appearance, I'm anything but perfectionist. And maybe that's what keeps me alive in the market 16 years later. So the thing you got to do, like I said, to know thyself is important. You got to understand why you're here, who you are, and what your emotional triggers are. And figure out a way to make the market work for you with those behaviors. Because some people aren't built to take high, enormous amounts of drawdowns, which is how much your account is down at certain times, or large amounts of risk. That doesn't make you a poor, terrible human being, you know, that doesn't belong in the stock market. It just means your risk appetite isn't on that level. You have to work within your parameters. Same way with stop losses, profit targets, position sizing. All of this is what makes trading difficult. So someone can show you a strategy, like I've said before, but you're the one that's going to have to make a hybrid version of that to fit into your personality. So I hope that kind of makes sense to you. Maybe you fit into one of these categories. Maybe you're like a little hybrid yourself. You fit into a few of these, or you started out one area and finish at another one. But this is something that we constantly teach at the Lincoln List, why I think our room stands above a lot of the others. It's because I'm not professing that my strategy is the end all of strategies. I'm saying there's more to trading. And when each person comes in, that's what we want to teach them, is first understand who you are. First understand what you are trying to get out of the market. And the rest of the stuff should fall in line for you. As always, if you need some help with that, feel free to visit thelincolnlist.com. Take a free trial to the live trade room. Thanks for listening to me babble. And thanks for trying to interpret my penmanship here while I write these. One of these days I'll learn to clean that up. Until next whiteboard lesson, thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Talk to you then.